speak at all today? Okay, thank you. We do have disposition of minutes for our past meeting. They are attached to the back of your packet. That was from August 15th. Everyone have an opportunity to review those minutes? And I know Shar had sent out a copy of them and then had immediately sent out a revised one. So I hope everyone didn't have to review both, but.
I move we accept the minutes.
I
did think one other thing after I told you, Shard. On the Wells Fargo building, if future development occurs, the remaining vacant property will require access from Cook Drive or from one of the adjoining properties on either side through a easement, access easement.
Okay.
All right, anything else? All right, Nancy, you still second that motion?
I do.
Okay, all those in favor of accepting the minutes from the last meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, and one abstaining. We do have cases, I'm sorry, I apologize. We don't have cases today. What I meant to say is we do have communications on our agenda. The first one being Business Zones Title 23. It would be a sort of ongoing discussion of our review of Title 23. Before we proceed in that, was there any other sort of more brief communications anyone want to discuss or bring up before heading into that discussion?
The only other thing I would want to communicate is my office did receive 2 letters from people on Charles Street concerning the integrated services project that's going on. The project is nowhere near even our purview yet because they have yet to acquire the property, I believe. The concern, of course, is that loss of residential, although really the property in question they're talking about is the car wash and it's in the B3, so it really isn't even a zone. But I want to express they sent letters to both council and myself.
Okay. Yeah, I did receive those. I forwarded them to Shar to distribute, so it didn't look, I wasn't sure if everyone else was addressed and I just wasn't seeing it, so. Okay.
You get them. And
Okay.
they have not submitted anything to us today.
Okay. Well, it does sort of relate to the business zones discussion, considering that it is the Zone B3, the area that they're concerned with. We had, back in the spring, gone through all the residential. Where we sort of left off was in this April minutes, where I know this codes for Zanesville was distributed, as well as Lancaster in let's see here, about a 16-page packet or so from Paul. I think Paul Logan put this together. I'm sure it was just grabbed from their websites and things. And it was just kind of as a frame of reference. It's been a while, so if you did review it at that time, it's probably recommended to maybe review again. And I don't know, I don't think Paul was necessarily advocating that this is a better version or a version that we should be using. He was just trying to provide an alternate of what we have already in place. So without going over a full review of the residential, we had sort of started with the business zones, originated this discussion. I put together a alternative of how to I guess basically how we could re-edit the Title 23 as it related to business zones. That changed by presenting a purpose, more clearly delineating the permitted uses versus an accessory use, and what also was a conditionally permitted use. What we have here is, I think Shar did provide copies of the current code of the business ones, B1, B2, and B3. And B2D, of course. I'm not sure what this 418 one is. Is this the re-edit? Yeah, this is, I believe, the edit as I had presented it. Again, this is not anything that we ever voted on or anything. It's just another way of looking at it, of kind of going piecemeal by piecemeal. But what I'd like to do is same thing we had done with the residential, is go through the current code and just sort of see if we can understand what it implies by offices, business and professional, for example, or eating and drinking places. Same thing that we kind of did with the residential is being holistic in our approach and not just kind of picking little edits here and there. Really, this is just to gain a discussion and an understanding of what is currently in the code, where we think a definition is lacking, where we think there's an omission of items that either are coming up and how we need to address them, and just to try to determine if this is the best approach or if there's another approach. So when I presented this item here, I think that's the 418, the business from last year, the 418 copied one. I think kind of ignore that for the time being. I think that was sort of my sort of take, and it was just to start discussion. I think what we want to do is include everybody in this, and then eventually come to a sort of consensus that we can present to, in a form of public hearing and eventually make the recommendations to City Council. That being said, I'd like to just kind of quickly, let's, rather than going right now word for word, let's lay out a sort of schedule of how we're going to do this. I think we constantly have these big ideas, and then we sort of, we need that way to follow through, and whether that's assigning responsibility or just setting a schedule that we can sort of stick to, so that it doesn't, the next controversial development doesn't come up and we go, oh, we were going to deal with that in B2D, but we never quite got there yet. And that way we can at least know, well, we're looking into that. So schedule-wise, what we've been trying to do is when we don't have a case, or if we have a very minor case, such as just a lot split or something, that we should hold discussion or communications. That being said, I thought you, John, you had mentioned there might be a couple cases coming up in the second meeting of September.
Next month, or next meeting, we have tentatively right now, there will be a lot split for Mr. Lavelle's property on McGuffey Lane. And I did receive word yesterday that Texas Roadhouse is coming for their Title 41 review on the first meeting of October. So they have not submitted drawings to me yet. I'm supposed to have them tomorrow morning.
If I seem to recall you saying you wouldn't be able to make the second meetings of the month.
That's for Leadership Athens. They changed their schedule for this month, for September. I actually go now next Tuesday, or next Thursday and Friday, not 2 weeks from now, so this month is okay.
Okay.
But there will be some upcoming that I will miss, yes.
Okay. Just wondered.
Could you
At
tell
this point, I need to really speak with Andy. We're having some issues as to whether or not there's road frontage through city property or if it's through state, and also if sanitary is there. But if it would be if you know where the steep driveway is going up to the house, that is not in the city limits, but the land in front of it coming down the hill.
on the other side of the drive?
To the left-hand side of the drive, yes. There's 6 acres there that they wish to kind of pretty much split it in half directly north-south property line, creating 2 large 3-acre lots approximately. The question is that technically McGuffey Lane at that point, or is it part of ODOT with the Route 33? Is it owned by them, or even the Natural Resources building in front of it? There seems to be some confusion on the...
Oh, I was on Cable Lane, I'm sorry.
So, and then I don't know, and I have yet to speak with Andy about sanitary, if it's even there at that location, so.
But that road has been falling off the hill.
Yeah. But that part is not in the city limits. That house up there and that road is not in the city limits, so.
Is it express purpose, so it doesn't have any frontage, the new one?
It does on McGuffey Lane, if McGuffey Lane is truly a city street at that point. That's
Is this
what
for
we need.
pasture, or is it for a house?
That I don't know. Again, the applicant will have to come here for that. I just got it handed to me day before yesterday.
It's zoned R1. So, we have to review it, assuming that
A single-family
approving for a
house?
single-family residential lot, yeah.
I don't know if it'd be pasture. It's pretty steep right there, I believe.
It is.
So,
Okay.
There are some horses that do.
That's for next week's case.
Okay, but that's the only item so far on the agenda.
That's
for
the only
next
item.
week.
Once again,
so far.
people might be interested if that's,
yeah.
seems small, but it could have a big impact.
Right.
Yeah. And then October, you were saying you just have possibly one case, the Texas Roadhouse
Texas
development.
Roadhouse, Title 41, October, what is that, 3rd, maybe? Whatever it is. the
Yeah.
First Thursday.
All right, so that would mean that we should be able to continue on this discussion pretty in-depth, hopefully next week, depending on the length of discussion on the lot split. So we have, we assume that probably one meeting, won't happen for some various reason or another, whether it's, the second meeting in December based on schedule doesn't happen, or November, et cetera. We just make that assumption that we have, at least 7 more meetings left, including this one. It seems viable to me that we should be able to complete our review of the business sections in that time frame, especially if we can get a pretty good jump today.
So you're talking about the 19th of September?
No, what I'm saying, by the end of the year, that would be...
No, I meant our next big work session after this.
Yeah, would be the next one in September. Now, again, it's all dependent on how long the lot split discussion goes, if it's clear cut by the time it's wrapped up, but sounds like now it's still kind of...
I'd hate to throw a monkey in a wrench, but I don't know if we're quite done with the Rs even.
I'm the one who asked to go back to the business
Well,
zones.
okay.
I am almost certain we got all the way through all the Rs. Now, whether again, our review,
Right, we did.
not through our what should be or shouldn't be in there. I think we're trying to keep this strictly to a review standpoint now, so we can start to kind of visualize what's missing or what requires more definition.
Stuff about housekeeping and the definitions and some of that stuff.
We're doing review, I just wanted to point out the confusions that are in the code.
Right.
And then, roll with it from there as you guys set the agenda and pace.
Right. So from a review standpoint, I mean, we still have the Bs, and then obviously there's some, whether we end up grouping manufacturing, for example, in with our B review, or we save that for another sort of day, the open space.
Open space,
Yeah,
EI zones.
Right.
Yeah, we got a few more things.
We got-
Overlays. Yeah.
So I think, as a goal, though, we should try to get our review done by the end of the year. So at the very least, we might even start doing our re-edits and suggestions, so that at least by the beginning of next year, we're on track for that. So if we can we'll start with business, let's just start going from there, and then we'll evaluate after our discussion today where timelines and trying to wrap this up, okay? Again, it was spring when we last met this, and we had a summer of cases, so that's... All right. B1, I believe, let me see here if I have... Yeah, and I had the packet, I believe, Paul, you had done this with residential, where you had provided, and this might be something, if you can get to put together by the next meeting, that would be useful.
For the B zones?
Yeah, for the B zones, you kind of provided a sort of annotated review of the code, of highlighting where there was a definition, what it was in code, where it was found, and if there isn't one. I think we'll proceed without that, but I think I found that very useful the last time.
I think I can do that for you.
Okay.
All right, B1, principal permitted use, any local retail business or service establishment supplying commodities or performing services primarily for residents in the neighborhood. B1, it's defined on our general zoning map found behind us, is color-coded as blue. It is one of the smaller sections, if not the smallest, next to the R2. I would assume by land area, it's probably even smaller than that.
Yeah, it is. There's very little. There's Madison at State, the northeast corner there, where Village Bakery and Athens Flower Shop is, and OD&R's office, and I believe Larry Conrath Realty. That's B1.
Right.
The Dairy Queen on Columbus Road is B1. There's
West Union.
West Union, that's correct. There's a section of West State Street as you're driving past Miller's Chicken.
Central, the end of Central, right?
Yeah, yeah, Central
South.
State Street.
Yeah.
Yeah. the other way.
But that's all residential homes in that stretch. It's actually right across the street from where the Innovation Center is.
Oh, no, I was thinking, isn't there one Frank's Bake Shop? Isn't that Harwood?
No, that's
No,
actually
that's been
R1.
rezoned. Yeah, that was rezoned years ago.
That was grandfathered in. I mean, was R2 at that time, and it's now R1, but it's never been a B zone.
Okay, it was a
Pre-
B zone originally?
No, I think it predates, its location predates even code.
Yeah, it looks like there is a big section in University Estates as well as, what is that section there? It looks like at the, is that where the soft barn's at? Is that zone B1?
Where is he?
Which area?
Oh, good point. Maybe I'm just reading the map.
Surrounded by all the R1.
That's West State Street.
Yes,
Oh,
Miller.
that's, just- okay.
That's across from the Innovation Center. And there's just a series of single-family and duplex.
Yeah, that's
But
what
not
I
the
thought.
city?
I'm looking above that though.
Yeah, that's a city on there. You're looking at,
Somewhat.
yeah, and then there's the
Yeah.
University.
No, that
Estates.
B1 is not owned by the city on West
It
State.
starts at the Columbia Gas station, or it's not a station, it's whatever you want to call it there.
The
And it works
compressor
the way
place
down
is
them
a better-
houses,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah, going down towards the city
the
garage.
But it doesn't reach it.
I do not believe it does touch the city garage property.
It ends at it.
So which one were you talking about?
Changes to
The one on West State
manufacturing
Street.
Oh, the one on
Small
West State.
B1 on
Okay.
West State.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was talking about the
So
one
you're
that-
saying that's university held?
No,
Oh, that is
private
city.
property.
Private.
Private.
Yeah.
Okay.
Land.
And RJ was talking about the B1 in the
University of State.
University State
right.
zone. Is that one, that's up at the top of the phase, between Phase 1 and Phase 2, is that
I'm
it?
sure till
That would be where the water tower is. If I
Purple
remember
and
correctly,
blue.
that's all B1 right there, where we,
I thought there was some business in the front of University
there
of
is at
State.
C3.
Okay, all right.
And then there's an area of West Union Street near Depot, I believe.
Yeah, Depot to, I think, to
I
the
see
Union
that.
Cafe
Right.
and Grinders and
Yeah.
I think going, I think.
Psychopath.
Psychopath, yeah.
and Smiling Skull.
Smiling Skull, which is always an issue, yeah.
No, it's a little, keep going, I can see the blue.
Yeah, to the left of your
Sure.
finger.
Oh, to the left, okay. Yeah, it's this one
Yep.
here? Okay.
And then where the old laundromat is that up the corner by Johnny Appleseed Park.
Mm-hmm.
That little corner. is
Ex-laundromat.
Ex-laundromat,
Correct.
as well as the gas station at the corner,
Yeah.
or it's not a gas station anymore, the oil
Quick
change.
lube place, yeah.
Quick lube place, yeah.
You might, is the area where the Red Cross is on,
Does not appear to be. That's over here on,
Hudson.
Hudson? I can't
Oh,
remember.
May.
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 yeah, this is all zone B3 through here. And that's, it's, there, oh yeah, right there. There, it looks like it's about almost 2 lots. It can't be much more than 4 even. There's a little more.
I imagine there's a history why these were chosen as B1s along the way.
Nancy, maybe you can correct if I'm mistaken, but about 10 years ago, wasn't there a move, there used to be more B1?
I think council refused to rezone, but, or to get rid of it. Because some of the people on council actually had property in it too.
So the goal at that time was to eliminate B1?
Yeah,
Yes.
I would be opposed to it because I think there's more and more effort to try and put in local
I agree.
businesses. But that's where I wanted to start. What does local mean? I've been in hearings a year ago, and somebody stood up and called Firestone a local business, and I would not call that local. Not because it's a multi-corporation, but because it serves the entire city. I just bought some tires there. I mean, it's not, I don't live in the neighborhood and walk to that place.
Right, not specifically like a B1, which
So that's one of
is
your
for the
things that really
residents, right.
needs to get defined, is
Right.
what is local.
I thought local always meant that it was close to the neighborhood that it was
Yes.
serving, not
Right.
necessarily the
Well,
business.
okay, if we look at it, it says any local retail business, service establishment supplying commodities or performing services primarily for the residents of the neighborhood.
So do you
I mean,
think
that's-
that, so that's the definition then?
That's what we
In
have right
that
now
area.
in the current code.
Right.
And the elimination at that time was saying these little mom and pop stores would not exist anymore. And I remember the planning commission going through the exercise of trying to eliminate them at the time. And most of it because they felt that they weren't fitting the pattern that was needed anymore.
And now we have like Village Bakery, which is very popular.
Right, but to Nancy's point, it's not just serving the residents of the neighborhood necessarily. It is performing that role, but it's also other people are from outside that neighborhood are going there, and there's, and obviously the parking requirements are a little less for a B1 compared to a B3, for example, in bulk controls. No, you're shaking your head, Mr. Bass.
It's based on the use.
So that might sort of be, that seems a little strange, because if you're saying this, we're saying a business is for those residents, that would imply walkability and not the necessity for
It says
parking.
primarily.
Right.
It doesn't say that it's exclusive.
Would that
point.
mean a street crossing then?
But you look at a Dairy Queen,
Right.
and as big of a fan of Dairy Queen as I may be, it's tough to say that that is primarily for residents. There's very few residents
Right.
even within walking distance to that Dairy Queen, and, its primary business generator, I believe, would be the drive-through,
Right.
so.
To the neighbors.
Would we be talking about this, if we start talking about B1s as neighborhood business, would we be talking about a footprint being a small footprint, even though it might service other people outside the residence? I mean, would we be discussing a size limit? In other words, we can't put, B1 would not be appropriate for a big box store.
Right, it seems like, yeah, it's
And it's just a lot of the
Question
lot,
of
just the
impact?
size. The only one that you look at that seems like has the area. Again, we know there's topography not showing up on the map, but is the one in the university
right.
states that you could do
You're
something
assuming
large.
it's rational, huh?
Well,
Okay, let's go back. We have the principal permitted uses, which is, again, to repeat, any local business, retail business, or service establishment supplying commodities or performing service primarily for residents of the neighborhood. We're finding that is shaky because it's usually past that.
No, but it's okay, but it's an okay definition, don't you think?
Yeah, it's okay, yeah.
It should go in, actually in the definitions, I think, because some people stop local and they have their own definition, and I've
True.
seen them do it.
Okay, if you look at the general conditions, though, the general conditions of business in enclosed buildings, all business, service, and processing could be conducted wholly within a completely enclosed building. Product for sale or at retail, all products on premises where the primary or incidental shall be sold at retail primarily on the premises where they're produced.
Is that Dairy Queen?
Well, yeah, maybe, but, the ice cream gets shipped in somehow. I
I
mean,
think
Right.
it means not wholesaling.
Yeah, that's.
no wholesale.
Right.
Okay. Well, maybe we should be
But I
saying
don't
that
know.
then,
yeah, it seems like that might, rather than tucking around it.
Okay. Must be non-objectionable. Processes and equipment employed in
Another
goods
definition.
processed or sold shall be limited to those which are not objectionable by reason of odor, dust, smoke, cinders, gas, fumes, noise, vibration, refuse matter, and water carried waste.
Which goes back to the performance standards were in the code before it got edited out.
Yeah, what is that based on? Is there an EPA sort of standard that we're referencing, or what?
Go back to the.
It's like the noise ordinance. We know when we hear it.
Right.
Or
We
smell.
get the calls all the
Or smell.
time on the houses abutting various restaurants with their fans, exhaust fans, all over town.
Right.
So, when you got an R zone abutting a B zone, it's permissible use. Where do you go? I don't know.
That B zone on State Street, does that go all the way down to the Speedway? Does it include that Speedway?
No, it's only on the north side of the street.
It's only on the north side of the street.
Yeah, it goes to to Tulane, I think, isn't it? No, May. It's in
Okay.
May, I think.
I think May.
I think it goes
Yeah,
from
where
Madison to
the-
May on that side.
There's a mechanics.
Right.
That's right, at
mechanic
May.
Cat a corner from the Speedway.
Right.
Right, I believe that's where it ends.
And I know the flower shop and Conrest or
Madison.
in the video place, which you could see as a definition
Right.
of
Right.
the local, as people walk there, but most people drive, I suspect. That's becoming obsolete anyway, video stores.
Mhm.
But if you do go back to the little zoning code that we used to have that, or Debbie could find it for you, you could probably get those, but my question would be, would you really even need it? It must be compatible with residential uses, you could almost say. I don't know, I mean, because we don't have it in the code right now. We used to have dust, what vibration is, what fumes are.
Oh, you mean definitions of each?
Those definitions were in there, but they got edited out. I didn't realize this was even still in here. It's like the Bible. You didn't know it's in there.
I didn't know that. I know the one you talk about, that's from the 60s, I think. right?
Yeah, the 69 version with the
The little
performance standards.
pamphlet, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen that for many years. I don't know
I
where
think
it
I've got
is.
one on my bookshelf.
Actually, we had to scramble for the red binder code just recently, looking
All right.
for that.
I think that non-objectionable word really, it's in the eye of the beholder as
Yeah.
well, which
Right,
put
well, that's what-
puts a burden on the code director and the service safety director to sign and say they don't believe something's non-objectionable, only to find out as soon as something goes in there that somebody finds it objectionable. And then how do you address that situation?
I believe there's citizens who would like to see that in there and that they could have a referendum every time it occurred.
Maybe so.
He's getting jaded.
So we're looking at this current code, and then over
Yeah,
a year ago, you
before-
had this.
All right, go ahead, sorry.
Well, that's where I was asking, in your model that's dated 4/18/2012, I think it's yours, but maybe.
It is.
What happened to eating and drinking places?
Well, I've asked that the model be ignored for the time being,
Okay,
since
so
we're
I'm
kind of
ignoring
doing
the
this
model.
holistic
All
review,
right.
so let's keep it at that.
Got it?
See what happens when you come in?
Yeah,
Sorry.
just don't let it happen again, okay?
Can you imagine, can you imagine something that would be incompatible that would be in a B1 zone? I mean, the space isn't big enough in general.
That's just.
I mean, it's local service.
To tell you the truth, I know there's going back and forth with bars all the time. I mean, the beer gardens and the noise there.
But their beer gardens are not, don't follow it because they're all,
It's supposed to be totally enclosed.
yeah, I know, that's exactly right.
I believe that needs to be defined. I just wrote down the three, and I think I said it before, and outdoor patios is a huge one for our
Yes.
office. That in a B1, if these are going to be little business-type restaurants, that the outdoor patios probably should not be allowed. No outdoor dining, no outdoor, because it's for the neighborhoods. So,
The Grinch that stole the party.
well, that's
Really, after
B2s and
this,
B3s.
the upgrades and the solar panels,
Yeah.
Well,
they'd be grandfathered.
unless you get a variance,
Yeah.
which they did on that
Yeah.
situation.
But
and-
that was for setback, wasn't it?
Yes. But
Well, we talked also about whether it's a permitted hours or along those lines as well, that you can have that use, but it can't, same with our noise ordinance. You can be loud up to a certain point, and then you can't be.
So you could put it in so that if it's outside, it has to close down by the time the noise ordinance kicks in. Is that 11 or 10?
10 on a week, 12 on a weekend.
Because there's your standard. You brought
Right.
it up, yeah. I mean, if you want to, that'll give him some wiggle room, which you may not want.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Right now, if we're talking about eating and drinking establishments, again, there's offices, business and professional. I'm not sure what the
Benefit.
other options are that are excluded from the office
Pilates.
standard.
Those are generally things that have a shingle, right? They would have a license. Well, maybe not business, but professional.
Professionals? I think
Professional,
professionals
yeah.
allowed in ours already, though, so we're already
Right.
in.
Yeah.
already
That's
permitted in
not a
our
problem.
zone.
Eating and drinking places is the one that I was going to jump to here. It does say restaurants are permitted as long as they don't include entertainment or dancing, or spontaneous dancing, let's put it that way, and not including drive-in or drive-through restaurants. Again, Dairy Queen probably was an example of a grandfathered one from when this was in effect.
I think that's one that we need to look at.
We brought that
After
up.
going through lawsuits or whatever you want to call it, the definition of entertainment, watching TV is entertainment. So I think it needs to be better defined what we mean by not including entertainment.
Live entertainment?
That could be it. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
You almost have to go back to that non-objectionable.
Right.
Because some live entertainment,
Yeah, acoustic, donkey type.
acoustic, a
Right,
poetry
could you have a
reading? Yeah,
speaker
right.
come in and give a lecture? Is that considered entertainment or education? I don't.
It seems like the goal of B1 is to have something community-based
Right.
with a very soft or gentle impact on its neighborhood. And so live entertainment might be acceptable based on its impact on that neighborhood or its hours. And
Right.
same with
And we talked
outdoor
about-
operations
Right.
as well, very same thing. A beer garden till 2 in the morning versus a coffee shop that closed at 9 p.m. where somebody can sit outside and have coffee, or a cafe where you can have lunch outside. Doesn't seem to have that big of an impact. We're also
That's true.
we might want to be careful because there's very little B1 out there.
Right.
And so it's hard not to talk about B1 without thinking about the specific businesses that we have in B1s, which is very few. And so when we're discussing outdoor operations in a...
Right.
So,
Right, and that's kind of my take
Right.
on it, is rather than being excluding, that we're saying there's a time frame where, you know, those items are permitted, and like, we're calling them non-objectional. Maybe we can find a better word for that, but or at least definition, like Nancy was saying, of what qualifies as smoke, gas, fumes. I mean, you think of, for example, Della Zona, which has a fire-burning stove. It's obviously doing those things, but when does it cross the line between an objectional smoke and a...
The only complaints we've had on that is people thinking the building's on fire.
yeah.
Some false fire runs on it.
Right. And then, like the mayor mentioned, with offices being permitted in in the residential zones, it does say residential uses are also a general permitted use in these, or a principal permitted use, I should say. In the B1, it does say any use permitted and as regulated in the residential district joining the B1 zone. If there are any adjoining two or more different categories of residential zones, the regulations of the least restrictive residential zone shall prevail.
And I
And
think
this-
that's where we've lost some of our B zones.
Can we ask about that?
Yeah, I think we've lost some of our B zones because if they're abutting an R, or R3 specifically, then the R3 encroaches into the B1.
Right, and
So-
that could be, I mean, maybe, again, but you look at these B1s, they're independent of whether it's an R1, an R2, and R3. You know, the B1 has no sort of, it's density. I guess, let's say the B1 isn't, when we think of a neighborhood business zone, primarily for the single-family residences or the multifamily. They could be adjoining any of the zones. So if, like John's saying, if it's adjoining, you do any use of that adjoining zone in the B1. So you could very well take a B1 and, for all intents and purposes, it looks and acts just like an R3. Or, there's, the example there at the end of the State Street, or even the one that includes Village Bakery and the Premier Video, et cetera. It has some single-family residential still intact in that B1.
So what I'm hearing from you is that you're saying that we should put more conditions on, just rather than least restrictive residential zones shall prevail, or should we say the most restrictive? Or, I forget, are the setbacks would fall under the R3 if you were
Yes.
adjacent to an R3, right?
It would, or whatever zone it
Close
applies.
adjacent, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, in other words, you could say, let's say, the most restrictive residence shall prevail. So in other words, if you're abutting a R3 and an R1,
Right.
R1 prevails and R3 does not. So therefore, that would be a preservation of the B1s because of that. But again, this would, we'd make various things non-conforming at that point. And
The argument we're getting is that it's basically losing business to first floor residential. We're back to that. In a B1 zone.
Right, I guess that's what I'm trying to get at is, the B1 zone, based on economic conditions, could very well disappear and turn into an R3 zone if it's adjoining an R3.
Right.
And it's probably not as problematic in the R1 and the very few R2 zones that we have. But I think that where the concern does come from is when it's adjoining an R3 and more economically advantageous of a developer and owner to change the use on that site. It's principally permitted. It may never even go, based on the size of it, go through the planning commission, and eventually we may still see all the B1s on the map and know that, you could one day change that over to a business, but when does that happen? Do we just start to make B1 not act as it was intended? mean, again, it's intended here because it's written in code as a principal permitted use, but I think one of the things I had suggested in that April 18th, let's ignore it, but was that it's a condition.
to bring it
Yeah, exactly, moving the residential uses out of the principally permitted to conditionally permitted. So it did have to be reviewed, but again, I don't know how you could say no unless, we made it very clear this is about a preservation of businesses in this zone, et cetera.
I was actually thinking the same thing, that a conditional, send it to the zoning board.
But,
So they'd have to say on it.
but there's only 3 conditions that need to be met.
Right,
According to the conditions in the Board of Zoning Appeals, which is established by our policy and maybe by the Ohio Revised Code. So I don't
Right.
think you can take it and add more conditions to it. Those conditions are not very stringent at all.
Which,
Well,
what is
you
that,
basically have
ingress
to
and
prove it
egress?
I'm sorry, Nancy, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I was not.
No.
I was just trying to figure out if you could expand that a little bit, because
Basic conditionally use. Can you look it up there, John?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought it's you have to prove it's a burden to not to do the principal permitted or something.
You're talking about the findings
Yeah.
for variance. There's a
Yeah, it
difference
doesn't have to go
between
through the-
It doesn't have to be, okay, so it's just condition, gotcha.
Yeah.
ingress and egress?
Conditional uses are that it complies with all applicable city regulations. The conditional use will be of such location, size, and character that it will generally be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the zone. It will not be detrimental to the orderly development of adjacent properties, nor inconsistent with the city comprehensive plan. And 3, the ingress and egress from the parking area is so designed as to cause minimum interference with traffic on abutting streets.
See, I don't think would be problematic then if you would move residential to conditional, because you could say, comprehensive plan's very clear on the preservation of the B1 zones. That if someone were reviewing an R3 development in that zone, for example, I could see there being resistance because of that fact of like, well, comprehensive plan's saying, preserving businesses, this would not, if that R3, for example, didn't have businesses on the first floor or something, it was precluding businesses altogether, that, it should be in the BZA's best interest to not approve a development of that nature. But
The second one is very powerful, too.
Right.
When you listen, when I
was the second
listened-
one again?
When he was talking about it, it's the sort of thing, I mean, if you really followed through on that, you probably wouldn't have many changes.
Right. The second one is the conditional use will be of such location, size, and character that it will generally be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the zone.
Of the zone, as opposed to the
And if it's
adjacent.
abutting an R3, then obviously it'd probably be in harmony with that zone. So I don't know
Right.
if that is
So we should
where
do
you want to
more.
go.
It's interesting, if we go back to looking at where the B1 zones are, that area of West State Street, for example, it's a B1 zone that abuts an R3 zone and is surrounded by a manufacturing zone.
Right.
So why is that even zoned B1, would be my first question. It's supposed to provide services to the general neighborhood, and if the general neighborhood is actually industrial zone, but the actual uses there is a city municipal park and Ohio University's Innovation Center. The B1 zoning designation doesn't seem,
Right.
In harmony with
the
anything else.
description of what a B1 should be doesn't seem to fit with the zoning at that location when you look at the surrounding uses. And as far as that R3 impact, I don't know what else is left. There's that Schaefer Street and Union Street area. It looks to me like there's adjoining R3 to that zone.
Right.
But then the other areas I think are surrounded by R1. And again, we're only looking at a few different spots, and then also that University Estates area, but that, to me, that's kind of a phantom. That's just land at this point.
Right.
That's years before that even gets developed. And a lot of other things would be developed before B1 use would come into play there. And as a PUD, we still have to treat that as the PUD, so we have to apply different standards to it.
So, okay, your question in the West State Street area, and again, I think that's just a leftover from historical,
Right.
zoning. If we look at how the zoning was created, there's a lot of zigzags there because what was there, people retained it.
Right.
In terms of philosophically where we want to go with this, it's a little bit different.
But I guess maybe what I'm saying is unless the B1 is that B1 zone that we're looking at is adjoining to an R3 zone, it seems to me that if you're joining an R1 zone, as far as the land use, your B zoning carries more value.
Right.
As far as property value than
Right.
R1 ever
So
would.
it really does only appear from that map that
Right.
State Street one is the only one that would probably
Right.
fall under that threat, because it's probably not going to be very advantageous for a very small
I've-
business to develop there.
I've actually had people say, wasn't that area actually larger with Table 9, Miller's, Stewart McDonald, beads and things.
That's all
that they can-
manufacturing, isn't it?
You know, it's, some of it's are.
Yeah.
Some of it's B3.
Miller's is, I believe it's actually.
I think it's R3. Stewart McDonald's R3.
Yeah, it's our thing, because they're central.
And
then
changing
these
that to
things
B1,
B1.
and
Yeah.
maybe with the
We
elementary
may
school, and we're
have
all,
the B1 in the wrong spot over there. It happens.
so.
And I guess the other thing I would, maybe I'm going too far ahead of myself, but are there areas within R1 zones where we should be looking and saying, does a B1,
Fit.
does adding a B1 fit? And I don't know, but
Well, and
Frank's Bait Shop was one of the first areas I thought of. Somebody mentioned that, and that does seem like maybe a B1 would work there. Maybe we would see some interesting redevelopment there too.
right, or, I think the one that,
Or
if we
pitchforks.
talked about, I think,
Or pitchforks, right?
right.
Sorry.
Well, and Fern Street was
Sidewalk.
B3, does that make more sense as a B1, for example, based on the, tightness, or Fern
Fern.
Street,
Right.
how, again, parking, we're still looking at from a use-wise, but actual, purpose, you're probably not getting a lot of people from outside that, uptown area that are going to Fern Street businesses, et cetera.
Well, actually, from what I've been told, there aren't really any businesses on Fern.
Oh, yeah, we had that conversation, I remember.
Is Rose's gone?
Yeah.
What?
Is the industrial chemical thing gone?
Industrial
It was like a
chemical?
plumbers, right?
Yeah,
Plumbers
the
gone.
Supply.
Yeah, there's a
Pizza
plumber-
place
Baldino's
at one
gone.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the only thing that was even there is Kleiman's rental office. is the
Well,
only thing. But
Rose's
that's
is on
actually
the other side, I'm sorry.
to his place. Or you're talking about the bookstore, but that's actually on East State.
No, up the street. I used to patrol it on Halloween a couple of times.
Yeah, there's nothing, as far as I know, there's nothing there.
Well, that demonstrates the issue with this town. It's a residential town, isn't it?
It can be.
I mean, it's talking about land always goes to its highest and best use. B3 is more valuable for what? For higher density residential. That's what it's valuable for, I think, I'm afraid. Could I ask a question about this particular one? Okay, so I'm now with the mayor on more restrictive residential zone. But in addition to that, I guess I want to know, does this go on then to R2 and R3, or is it unique to B1, since it mentions B1?
You mean the residential use in?
The adjoining, if there are adjoining two or more different categories, the regulations of the more or less restrictive zone shall prevent.
Actually, can I bring something else that's even, that's right in this?
This is ours.
It's only B1?
In those regards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I went forward to see if it was in B2, B3.
No, it's
No.
not B2.
But it's in the previous chapter. What is that?
The
I find it frightening.
Residential?
R3.
the only
Oh,
other
isn't
place
that
I know is
right?
like when you have
Yeah, see,
that's
split
right.
zoning through a lot, it can go to the least restrictive. And
That makes sense.
I think that's a
and,
typo.
Mason, what are we talking about
What
here?
do you think's the typo?
It says under R3 residential uses, any use permitted and as regulated in the residential zoning zone B1. It should-
No, I don't think that's a typo.
I thought that was one of the things we needed to correct.
I think it is a
Last year.
correction issue.
Well, once
Yeah.
again, you have the term least restrictive there, and you have the term least restrictive here.
So it's above, it's up
Yeah, it
something.
shouldn't be there, I don't think. What I was going to say is, I find this kind of very interesting, is that it's any use permitted and regulated in the residential district adjoining the B1 zone, not adjoining the lot being developed. So you, for example, and I'm not, even though this, again, probably isn't a threat,
Run into
He's a
that.
word gamer.
I thought that was correct.
Okay.
but, one of these,
Backtrack.
find a good one here. This B1, for example, you could have an R3-like development show up right here because of the fact of this B1 is adjoining an R3.
Right.
And it could just leapfrog all the other
Yeah.
B1s and go right here because it's about the zone adjoining rather than it being
Not the parcel.
rather
it's
the
not
parcel.
zone, Right,
Yeah.
right.
That's,
Which is why if you look at that East State or West State Street Park area, that whole entire B1
Right.
zone has the uses of an R3. because
Right.
It adjoins to,
Do you have to even allow that? I mean, that's where I'm getting. Is this something under ORC? Or why, if we go most restrictive, or
If
do we
this is
just
a-
pull it
yeah.
out completely?
was it a city intention or a
Yeah.
requirement of the
I think
revised
the way
code?
I know that the people complain about it, that maybe we say that in residential zones, if we're talking neighborhood, the maximum is duplex, and not say about what it abuts. The maximum residential we're going to allow is a duplex.
B1 is
In a
a-
B1.
second floor and above,
Or second floor and above, yeah, I mean, that's
cap the height.
cap the height, cap the size, cap whatever, but so therefore it doesn't say it can, based on
And
the
there's a
zone it
lot
abuts.
size requirement and everything.
Yeah, well, then it'd have to meet all that, but, we have lost a lot of R2. Maybe this is an argument that, duplexes would be permissible. I don't know. It's just,
Okay,
So change the wording of that to reflect that.
right. Has nothing to do with whether it adjoins anything.
R3
Right.
and B1 both then, you're talking about, right?
Yeah, and R3, I think we just need to figure out why that,
I thought that was corrected in one of the ordinances last year.
That'd be good if it were.
That would be good if it
yeah.
was.
I seem to recall we walked our way through some of that stuff a while back, but I may be wrong on
All
that.
right, we'll double check on it, I think.
It's pretty mind-numbing. about it.
Let's go on to we probably want to wrap up, and we'll just stop with the B1 today. Let's complete the conditionally permitted uses here. We have accessory uses and structures as permitted and regulated in the R3 zone, and any other accessory uses and structures customarily accessory and incidental to any of the foregoing permitted B1 uses. That B1 pretty much appears that way through all the residential. They keep on sort of additive that you can have any accessory as permitted in the R3. Again, it might not make sense any longer, especially if we modify what that residential use is. Now, I think it should be any accessory use and structure as permitted and regulated within the B1 zone.
Right, not speak to the outside
Right, not
zone
speak
is
to
what
the other
we're-
zone,
okay.
exactly. It should be just in this one because, you could have an accessory, a permitted accessory use for a residential zone that has nothing to do with what you've actually built in there. That doesn't make much sense to me.
That's right.
So the other one is any other retail business or service establishment determined by the board, which I assume BZA again, because conditionally permitted uses are reviewed by them, to be the same general character as the above permitted uses, not including those which were first permitted or are not permitted in the B2 zone. Now,
Now what?
I don't think that's very good at all because that seems to be just one of the items that Mr. Paskey had just told us that the BZA reviews rather than all four of them. I think we might be able to either list them as it's noted or just reference the section for the BZA conditionally permitted uses there rather than this version. Other comments about what do you guys see that's missing from a conditionally permitted use? We talked about maybe the drive-in, drive-through being something that should get reviewed by someone in B1 in earlier discussions about this.
I don't understand this, not including those which first permitted or are not permitted in the B2 zone. So were they a business that was first permitted in the B2 zone?
Right.
Yeah, which-
If it's introduced in a B2 zone, it's being principally permitted for the first time.
Which
It can't be
obvious,
permitted in
right.
B1.
It can?
It cannot.
No.
You can see why, too,
Okay.
because automotive services and...
It's pretty vague, especially when you look at number 3 there, under B2.
Right, and there's actually no uses that are
See,
not permitted.
again, this is that,
Is this also saying then that
yeah, are we supposed to reference these other businesses?
I see. That I think was one of the ones. I think all the members were pretty adamant about to stop the cross-referencing of zones because I think it just creates confusion.
Well, if you do a stack, but I mean, you talked about the R3 zone there as an accessory use, then you go back and look what those accessory uses are in an R3, and I don't see where really any of them are that, with the exception of 7 and 8, that the residential use or for fraternity and sorority house, the majority of them would probably be uses that would be, again, conditionally permitted in a B1. Because you're looking at motels, hotels, bed and breakfast, residential healthcare facilities, clinics. So these might be items, a small doctor's office or a clinic. I don't know, but private
Those
clubs.
are two separate things, a small doctor's office and a clinic.
Well,
Right, but that's 'cause
but then you have to ask, why are those things permissible in an R3, but they're not in the B zone?
well, those are just conditionally permitted uses. Those aren't accessory, are they? I was reading those as just the conditionally permitted uses, not as and I thought it's only the accessory structures
uses
that.
B versus C versus C. You're saying conditionally permitted is
Accessory
C,
use.
Yeah,
permitted accessory uses is B.
right.
And again,
B is
permitted
permitted
accessory uses
accessory.
says any accessory use of structure permitted
I'm
is
sorry,
regulated in
okay.
R2 zone.
Yeah,
So, and we're looking at the R3 right now. so
Right.
Just so we know where we are.
yeah.
Yeah.
Again,
And I see what you're
it
saying.
probably helps to, Paul, when you're putting together the definitions, is see if you can find how we define accessory use and structure. I mean, I think we think of it as a garage or a shed or something along those lines, maybe an outhouse. Sure.
I don't think that's
Gazebo,
But yeah,
gazebo, yeah, okay.
yeah,
playhouse.
and maybe and we might find it doesn't.
Accessory
So-
use is defined, a use or structure subordinate to the principal use of a building or to the principal use of land in which is located on the same lot serving a purpose customarily incidental to the use of the principal building or land use.
So it's pretty much defined a little differently, but almost the same as what we have it.
And then there's a definition for accessory building as well.
Okay.
so, Which is just a building, the use of which is incidental to that of the main building, or
Right.
buildings on the premises and which is not intended to be used as a dwelling.
Garage, storage
Garage,
shed.
yeah.
Right, and again, that's all reviewed by BZA. You can't, so this means you can't install a garage in a B1 without having the BZA look at it, correct? If it falls under conditionally permitted use.
Correct.
Probably correct. Yeah,
So in other words,
haven't
you-
had any of those come through.
Right,
You could build a
so it's up to the
house-
BZA to determine if it's an accessory or
Are
incidental.
you sure about that? Oh, yeah, regulated.
Because they're both under conditions and
Yeah, so we'll
Yeah.
keep that in there.
You sure?
The,
I'm not sure about that.
that last section where it says any other retail business or service, that's,
Mhm.
so I'm looking at 230404B2.
Yeah,
Not including those which first permitted or are not permitted in the B2 zone. So B2, 230405A1, where it goes back to that residential use is only on the second floor or above. Does that mean that you cannot have a B1 that's mixed use because residential only on the second floor and above is introduced in the B2 language? But you can have a standalone residential use, but not mixed use in a B1? Or am I muddying? That's how I'm reading it.
no, that's how I would read it as well, that you can't have residential on the second floor.
Right.
Well, wait a second.
In
I-
a B.
You can have standalone residential
Right.
in a B1, but you cannot have commercial with residential
But
on top because
I
that's
think
only introduced.
the mayor's
in
going to
B2.
point out the first part of that is critical. Go ahead.
Right.
Well, actually, I was going to point out, again, the permitted uses all would be residential uses, what is it, 230404
Right.
A4 says residential uses, and that doesn't stay, so that's allowed.
Right.
Residential, you can have on the second floor. I mean, I know what you're saying. You're saying because, it says on the second floor means, and it's not permitted in the B2.
Well, I'm saying there's nothing that says you've got residential uses are held separately from the commercial uses. There's nothing that says mixed use is permitted. But it certainly implies that mixed use is permitted in
B2.
B2s
Right.
because residential is only allowed on the second floor and above.
Right, and it's
I'm just asking, I don't know.
Well, and it's
Maybe I'm
under-
reading it different.
it's under conditionally permitted use that any other retail business or service establishment.
Right.
So does that mean you, as if it's a office, you could have residential above? But if it's a retail business or service establishment, you can't have residential above? Because it's only, it's not just saying any other principally permitted use in
Right.
B1. It's a strange,
I'm just wondering if
Yeah.
residential uses permitted on the second story and above first introduced in the B2. And if it's first introduced in the B2, because that's how it looks when I read the B2 language, because it doesn't say that in the B1,
right. Well,
it would seem to me that we should allow mixed use in the B1.
right.
It's gray to me on the language, and we know that's a larger problem with our zoning code, is that the language is gray.
Right. I mean, I think the point in that item, though, is saying that the code may be missing something, and it's going to be up to the BZA to determine if it's of that character. Now, we could say, no, we don't think it should be up to the BZA to determine that. We're going to list what, we're going to make a recommendation to council that these are the uses that should be permitted there. No other use should be permitted. And I don't think we want to do that, obviously, at all. But I think that the intention there is to say, this might not be complete. There may be a use that comes up in the future that we aren't quite prepared for, and that we're going to put that into BZA's responsibility to make that determination. And then we can come back and now say, now that we know what's in the B1, we can start to understand, maybe we should be including some of these that the BZA had to approve, et cetera, or not approve.
So go back a minute, and I think you're right, but I do think that BZA may not know the concept generally, mixed use. And so maybe we ought to charge Paul with trying to come up with a way to help us, since that's his job, occupation, his profession. You know, what is mixed use, and would we need to put it in? I mean, I don't have the capacity or ability or privilege to ask him to do it, but it seems to me he keeps saying mixed use, and we don't have it in our code.
Do we have a definition of mixed use? Do we even
You
have
can
a
find
concept
one.
in that code? I don't know.
It's new.
I think it was in the comprehensive plan, but not.
Right.
Right.
And, you know, and I would say that listing it, as you said, Nicholas, so well, is probably folly, because the automotive services and service stations that they are talking about are something from my childhood rather than the present
Right.
day. You know, because nobody does those grease monkey kind of things in
Right.
neighborhoods anymore.
Right.
They're
And they
gonna
have
Firestone.
mulch bags, you can buy all sorts of things in the
Right.
exterior now.
Right, but not have that kind of service, so I remember them, but they're not going on today.
All right.
I look at jump to the B2 for a second. I look at the residential use permitted only on the second story and above as a restriction and not a prohibition to mixed use, from my point of view. It's a restriction of no residential on the first floor.
I agree
And
with you on
yes,
that,
I know.
right.
But and I know you're looking at the other side of it when you say, you know, does this prohibit mixed use in a B1?
Well, I mean, I
Well,
think it's
I'm
challenge
wondering if
ridden.
it's first introduced in the B2. And if it is first introduced in the B2, then
It can't be conditionally
not including
permitted.
those which are first permitted
Yeah.
is the very last sentence in conditionally permitted uses in a B1.
Okay, but if
So-
we rewrote
I crossed
that
that one
section
out.
saying no residential use on the first floor, that would change the whole tone of what you're saying here. The implication is that you could have residential on the second floor, and B1s would also be allowed, no?
No, because it says not including those which were first permitted or not permitted. So it would be a not permitted one that would be first
Tortured.
introduced in the B2.
Tortured
And therefore,
Mm-hmm.
you could,
Not permitted on the first floor.
you know.
It says nothing about the second floor.
But if you go to the spirit of mixed
Right.
use with B1 and B2,
We would want.
You would want.
yeah,
You
we would want
that.
it. And so, can we go for the positive and eliminate some of this tortured language?
Yeah, I think that's I'd like to be more prescriptive than prohibitive.
Good way to describe it.
Yeah.
All right, well, that concludes our discussion of the B1 for today. Obviously, it's going to be ongoing. We'll start with B2 at our next communications, if we can. And if, of course, it's a roundabout discussion. If we have to go back and revisit things in B1 or to fully understand, we need to proceed to the next heading, we will do that. And their communications, okay, do you need to go, or do I don't want to continue?
Finish it.
Okay, I'm pretty sure. We have reports from the city planner and director of code enforcement. Do either of you have any news to share with the commission?
I have a few things, one of which is I slipped a 3 or 4 sheet staple packet with your packets there. There are some changes being made to the flood insurance, FEMA flood insurance program. This was approved back in 2002 by Congress. It's called the Bigger to Waters Act, Flood Insurance Reform Act. There's just a few summary documents, but the thrust of this is that FEMA and the flood insurance program are moving away from large-scale subsidies of flood insurance. They are trying to move closer towards a risk-based model where property owners are going to be paying flood insurance based upon their real risk. In the past, there was a lot of subsidies out there, especially for grandfathered-in properties, where taxpayers at large were helping to subsidize that pool for them. They're under a lot of pressure from taxpayers who didn't seem to make sense that they're subsidizing for other people's risk. They're starting to move away from that, which basically means that for some people in the city of Athens, are going to see their flood insurance premiums rising. I did happen to speak with real estate agent Don Linder yesterday when I met with the Chamber of Commerce and gave them this information, and Don said that he has seen some flood insurance premiums in the city already rising by about 20%, specifically for second homes, commercial projects, and rental projects. Primary single-family residential will be coming later and with a softer hit.
I seem to recall part of that was when they had the hearings, ODNR and flood.
That's correct. They did touch on that. So there's just a packet of information I thought from a planning standpoint that's relevant for the planning commissioners to know about. Also with flood risk, if you recall a few weeks ago, the Planning Commission approved a lot split out on East State Street, and there'll be a Wells Fargo, either bank or Wells Fargo Financial Center being built there. That piece of land specifically, based on current maps, is not in our floodplain, but with the new maps that will be adopted next year, that piece of land is in the 100-year floodplain. I did communicate that to the developers there, that if they're going to build something, it would be wise for them to think about elevating the structure, because at some point they will be paying flood insurance, but at this point they're not required to. But I did speak with a surveyor this week asking for the base flood elevation, and they're expecting to build a slab on grade elevating to get that building out of the proposed floodplain.
Any idea how much elevation they need?
I don't know.
Okay,
Yeah.
because there's a general dollar there that's fairly elevated, I think, further to the west.
Right, that's right. And the general dollar is actually in the floodplain. It kind of, the maps that dip down, I believe.
Okay.
So it looks like they're being proactive to address that situation up front, which is a positive thing. Only other issue I have are other notes. We do have, as you are aware, an Environment and Sustainability Commission of the city. They meet on a monthly basis. They had their monthly meeting on Tuesday, and that commission right now is looking at and discussing the possibility of putting together either a sustainability plan for the city of Athens or a climate action plan for the city. Those are both two planning documents that a lot of communities have. Ohio University has both of those as well, and so they're looking into that right now. And they'll probably be coming forward to City Council later in this year to discuss that and see if this is something council would like to move forward with.
Thank you, Paul. John?
Just a couple things. The Board of Zoning Appeals meets next Tuesday evening. Only 2 cases this time. One of them is actually a holdover from last month when the applicant did not show up at 27 South May for to build a garage with setback requirements or variances needed. And the other one is an interesting one. It's at 10676 Door Lane. There's a house up there that, to be honest, a lot of people didn't realize was in the city for years, and he's been renting it out, and we found out. And so not only is he renting it out, he made the house into a duplex, and then he has a garage with a unit in it as well. So basically, He's got a triplex situation going on in 2 structures where only 1 rental and 1 structure is permitted, so he's going for a variance to leave it as is. This is up behind those storage units that we did a lot split on last time.
If I remember when this is built, this is the big one that was built up on the hill. That's an R1 zone. It was discussed as R1 zone. He's been actually probably being charged for inside city rates, water rates, I assume?
Yes.
So therefore, he's always been in the city, and therefore he should be following the rules.
Yep.
Nobody realized that?
He says he
Okay.
did. And we got a phone call. We didn't realize it was being rented out, and we got a phone call from a tenant, and we paid it a visit, and that's how we caught all this. So,
I remember when this was being built, one of the caveats was to watch this significance considering the size. I think you were saying that.
I have actually
It was
found
your award.
I have actually found the minutes of all those meetings too. So
Yes.
or
And
at one
can we
time,
get
rather.
the address changed to comply with the rest of the city? When you give a 5-digit address, that identifies it as county.
10676? It may, well, I'll have to look, but the other ones, there's no, the whole apartment complex up there on the hill is not in the city, so it's in line with those and everything. So
I'm assuming you'll submit all that, those minutes to the zoning board of appeals
Yeah.
for background? Okay.
Yeah.
Just wondered.
pull everything out on it. Also, last week, we did go through the shade tree, just to fill you in on the 4 cases that we talked about. Wells Fargo, Tim Hortons, the Fairfield Inn, Suites and Hotel, and Texas Roadhouse, all 4 went through and were all approved based on the plans that were submitted to the Shade Tree Commission. So, and again, they're all moving forward. And then, as we discussed, next month, or next meeting, we'll have a lot split on McGuffey Lane possibly, and Texas Roadhouse has indicated they will be here for their Title 41 on October 3rd.
All right, and I remember the shade tree one where there was discussion by the commission members of how that would work on the Texas Roadhouse. If it was it still considered the entirety of the
The way they end up doing it is,
the number of
Please.
trees needed in
the
that
number of
development.
trees, they actually had more than the number required for the general area of that building, and then
Okay.
they placed them throughout the site on the property. Guess the main entranceway coming in, it's wide as it is, they're going to do a tree island down the center of it to separate inbound and outbound, and all the way up towards the front of the building, and then various islands throughout the parking lot.
Okay, any other questions for Paul?
Yeah, could
Go
we possibly have, Mr. Paskey, could we have some information on that McGuffey Lane? I'm not third ward rep anymore, but I'm a little concerned about the amount of water, because when the initial driveway was built, if there's going to be another one built here, or if they're going to use the same one, there was considerable water that all of a sudden appeared down below and flooded some of those houses.
At this time, no driveways are needed. It's a lot split only. That's, the access would be parallel with the drive that is having issues already.
And you know it
so-
does have issues with water moving into it.
Right, well, you
It's
know.
also slip prone.
Yeah,
So-
but I guess I'm a little concerned about us coming and having it and then, really not the neighbors out there not.
Once I meet with Andy and find out all the requirements of whether or not the road is part of the city, and if it has water and sewer there, then I will copy everything and email it to everyone so you can review it before the next meeting.
I was just worried more about the people who live up there. If they
But-
would know.
And the width to depth ratio would probably be
It meets
one of the
that.
questions. It meets that?
Yes.
Even though you don't know if the frontage is city or not?
Well, if it is, if the frontage is city, then it meets that quite easily, actually.
Okay, just wondered.
Like 200 foot wide by 300 some foot deep, each parcel would be.
Okay.
All right, well, the agenda and those items will be available on the city's website by next Thursday. Correct? Yeah, because we're meeting in a couple weeks.
Friday.
Week from today. So
2 weeks from today or what?
we're meeting 2 weeks from today, but they'll be available 1 week from today is
Thank
when
you.
the agendas,
Thanks for the clarification.
Or by
Okay.
Friday.
or by Friday. But I think we know.
Okay.
It'll be the case and continue discussion on the business. So
One more announcement I have.
go ahead.
I noticed there's going to be a watershed forum from the Legal Wind Voters this Saturday at the Ridges, I believe, starting at 9 o'clock. Has to do with, I think, our city participation would be wellhead protection, a panel on that, I believe.
Okay. All right, any other announcements or other business? Again, we are meeting in 2 weeks, September 19th. If there's nothing else, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.